Started a series here at Forward called Be, and really the greater name of the sermon is the greatest sermon ever given, which has been good for advertising on our little thing out there, because when people come in and think that they're going to actually hear the greatest sermon ever given. But the reason why we called it that is not because it is, but because at one point in history, Jesus waited like 30 years to come out and teach. And then when he started doing things that was rocking people, because they'd never seen anybody do anything like that, he started to gather a crowd. And then after 30 years of silence, at least publicly, he had this crowd in front of him and he laid out his first sermon ever. And really, it's the model. It's the greatest sermon that was ever given. And the first so many verses of that are called the Beatitudes. And the reason why they call it the Beatitudes is that Jesus basically said, here's the deal. I know you've heard a lot of religious teachers, a lot of philosophies from these lanes of the world, but here is the reality of God. And I'm going to lay it out for you. If you want to be blessed in this world, these are the things that you do, and anything else you'll watch people chase their tail into misery forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Beatitude, the word means to be blessed. And so basically he's telling, these are the conditions by which, the conditions of heart, that you'll find yourself being blessed when you are there. So last week we talked about when you are poor in spirit, you're blessed. And again, that sounds crazy. Everything Jesus said a lot of times is upside down. But it's really, once we come to a point where we are humbled completely, we're in a position then to finally be blessed in this life. And now we come to the second condition in which Jesus said the unique way in which we can be blessed in this life. And as always, Jesus kind of rocks all logical thought with his teaching here. And we're only going to teach on this one concept. He says in Matthew 5:4, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." And when hearing that, you have to think like, well, there's got to be some secret meaning, what he really means to say, or maybe in the Hebrew, it's like, it really don't mean, blessed are we when we mourn, because how ridiculous would that sound? But the answer is, in this case, no. It pretty much is what it is. Jesus says, blessed are you, or happy are you, when you mourn, when you're sorrowful, when you're broken, when you're sad. And so, Jesus is saying, happy are you when you're sad. How crazy of a comment or a statement is that? And you can begin to see how the people around Jesus at this time in history were so intrigued and so taken aback by this man who, in essence, turned everything upside down, every natural thought process that mankind had come up with up to the point when this man started teaching. He rocked it. He knocked it out. We think we're blessed when we get rich, right? And here comes this guy who says, you are blessed when you become truly poor. We think that we need to pump ourselves up or boast to people in order to take notice or to give respect in this world, and that's where we get esteemed. He says, when you become utterly humble and make yourself nothing, that's when you become everything. And on, Jesus' teaching is radically opposite of anything that any philosopher or any religious leader or me in my own mind before I knew Christ had ever taught up to that time. And here he basically says, happy are those who are sad. How in the world could that possibly be true? In Proverbs 3, God tells us, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding of things. And he says that because his truth, God's truth, is nothing like our own understanding of things. You know what I mean? If it was, then doing things my own way might have kind of worked. Doing things your own way might kind of be working. But the reality is that throughout the whole of history, people who did things God's way find the abundant life, and people who don't, flat out don't. Because God's way of doing things and God's way of finding happiness, joy, peace, patience, all those things is the opposite of what's the first thing in my mind that comes with, hey, I want to get joy. Whatever I go to do to get joy, I'm wrong. No matter what it is. I can change the variables a little bit, I'm wrong. I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Consistently and constantly, I'm wrong. And I want to start off today just by asking you to think back to a time when you have truly mourned. You know what I mean? Maybe it was the loss of a parent, or of a family member, or of a pet, of something. Maybe it was the loss of a job. You know what I'm saying? Maybe something important to you was lost or was taken, stolen, house robbed, whatever it would be. Think about how that feels to truly mourn, right? Think about that helpless, that broken-hearted feeling when you just know there's nothing you can do but cry because something or someone is just gone. It's final. It's not, hey, well maybe I'll just kind of wake them up. It's done. It's final, and you're mourning the definitive final loss of that person. The essence of walking with God is that He cannot enter the story of our lives until we hand Him the pen. Period. He's a gentleman. He says, behold, I stand at the door of your life and I knock. But I'm not kicking this door down. You have to choose to hand me the pen and I will write the greatest story you can ever imagine in your life. But until you let go of pride, you let go of self, I will not steal the pen from your hand. And we cannot hand Him that pen so long as I feel like I can still manage things. Like I can still just change the variables in my life and make it work. The closest that every human being throughout all of history comes to that place of brokenness is in the moment that they stand over the grave of someone they love and have no answer to give. Have no, answer to anything. No ability to do anything about what they're witnessing right there and then. They're mourning. They're broken. They have no variables to rewrite the story. And so when we are broken by death or by the circumstances of jacked up life in a broken world, we come the nearest to the one who can actually comfort every pain from that point and out. And the choice that we make in those moments of pain or mourning or brokenness or grief is whether we will still hold on to our pride and be stoic. Like, I'm not crying, man. I don't really care. I'll change, I'll change this or I'll change that. Like I still got it together, even though I'm in prison. When somebody gets in the joint, one of the first things they do is they turn to God. But as soon as they start getting a little comfortable in the environment, it's kind of like, hey, it's not so bad. I get 3 meals a day. They lose their prison faith very quickly, and it floats out the window. When we're truly broken and we let go of the pride, we let go of the hard guy stuff, all of it, we have a choice to make to either do that or whether we acknowledge in that moment, standing over that grave, that maybe I don't have all the answers. Because there's something laying here in front of me that I can't fix. And I'm hurting and I'm broken. What am I supposed to do with this? I can't fix it. Until we are completely broken, we cannot be completely fixed. Period. That's just logically speaking. For many Christians in this room, if you rewind back the clock, you will find your prayer of salvation didn't take place when life was grand, and the world's ways seemed to be working. Life was going good. Eat, drink, be merry. It's going fine. When there was no real tragedy in front of you, usually that's not the point that you reached out to something beyond yourself. It took place when the effects of sin took effect, and we were faced with the fact that we are not quite as invincible as I wish I was. You know what I'm saying? Only in a time of deep mourning do you see the tough guy let his guard down. You know what I mean? Until then, I kind of got things under control. Only in mourning do you ever see the know-it-all shut up and stand silent in front of the grave of his parent or his best friend or whatever. Only in mourning, in moments of brokenness, do you see a room full of people all collectively broken and humbled enough to kneel in a church and ask, why did he have to go? Why? And finally ask questions that are beyond this petty little 5-cent plane that we're living on. And so what Jesus is saying here is that when we are in that state of brokenness and mourning and questioning and finally asking a question that's not here, we are blessed. Because we're finally at the end of ourselves and in a position to come into contact with something greater than this petty little horizontal experience that we're having. We're actually in a position for the first time in our heart to come to connection with the Comforter. If we only come in contact with circumstances in our life that are within our control to manage, then we may never have to reach outside of ourselves. And the enemy will keep us chasing our tail and spinning forever. But if we face death, or heartbreak or tragedy on such a scale that we're completely shattered by it, then we might just have to look outside of ourselves to find an answer. And that's a blessed place to be. No matter what the hardship is, no matter what the loss is, no matter how horrible that moment or that tragedy is, we are in position finally to think outside of ourselves, because we know I don't have an answer to that guy laying there. What he is not saying is, blessed are you when these horrible things happen. There's nothing blessed about having your child die, or having their loved ones stolen from you, having your house burned down, having a parent die. There's nothing blessed about bad things that will happen to us along the journey of life. Nothing. As a matter of fact, they're all evidence of the fact that sin has made our world unblessed, jacked up. When I look at someone dead in the grave, it's the reality of, hey, sin, the wages of sin is right there. And if I don't look outside myself, that's it. Done died. Grandma's not in a better place. If the finality of her life was, no, my way, my way, my way, my way, we could have all the fanciful thinking we want.
Amen.
But the reality is that's not true. It's not reality. And at the end of the day, whether in this place or any other place, I just want to get down to reality. You know what I'm saying? If I was in a prison cell 8 years ago and I opened Dr. Seuss and Dr. Seuss radically transformed my life, I'd be here preaching green eggs and ham. The reality is that I happened to open this instruction manual that said, look bro, you do it my way, I will radically transform every single facet of your life, and here we stand. And it's the reason why I'll share this in spirit and truth, not in my opinion or my faith statement of what somebody told me. We live in a broken world where our own decision to throw that instruction manual out the window has left us in a place where you don't have to think long, you don't have to run around too long to find something to mourn about. The question is, when these bad things happen and strike us in our heart, do we catch a glimpse of how futile we really are and how temporary this lame life is, this temporary life, and reach out to something better, something greater, something eternal, something beyond that grave? Or do we use it as even more of an excuse to just rebel against the one who's crying out in that moment and saying, I'm right here. Behold, I stand at the door of your life and I knock. I'm sending these people. I'm sending you in these places. Behold, I stand at the door. Just open the door. I am the comforter, the answer to what you're looking at that has no answer. Because if we just delve deeper into ourselves, the whole woe is me mindset, we miss out on the fruitfulness of mourning and travel right into despair. Despair is mourning with no hope. You know what I'm saying? Jesus is not saying, blessed are you when you despair, or blessed are you when you're depressed. Because despair or depression is a mindset that does not look to God for the only hope that this world has to offer. It looks to self for answers. It looks to, what can I do better? What can I change? If only I had this. If only I had that. It looks to self and does not look to God. And therefore, it just grieves hopelessly and incessantly forever, spinning its tires with me on the throne and God may be one of these little variables out here. 1 Thessalonians 4:13 says, brothers and sisters, we do not want you to be uninformed about what you see in front of you, those who sleep in death, so that you won't grieve like the rest of mankind who has no hope. The difference, when we grieve, and grieving is a very real thing. Mourning is something we're supposed to do. Like I hear cats say all the time, like, when grandma dies, she knows Christ, she lived a good life, she's a good woman. We're going to throw like a going home party with like balloons, and we're going to play Toby Mac, and it's like, that biblically, that's not the case. The Bible, Jesus models for us that there is a season for mourning. There is a season for being in that place of broken mourning and not understanding and just mourning the loss of a person. And in that place, we're about as close to Him as we can get because we're utterly spent in our own understanding. You know what I'm saying? And I can say that when we allow the mourning that we experience in this life to take us to a place of despair or depression, we are disconnected from God. Why? Because one of the fruits of the Spirit is peace. How can I possibly be connected to the source of all peace and not have peace in my life? That's an oxymoron. And so when we mourn, when there's things in our life that just aren't right, or it's painful, it hurts, and it is what it is, we can either turn inward and stew and whine, or we can turn upward and experience a whole different life. I only experience despair and hopelessness when me and my problems become the center of my world rather than Him. But death and pain and mourning provide for us the greatest opportunity to break down to our knees and admit, you know what? I don't have this life altogether. Because as good as I might be able to spin these plates, I got no answer for that right there. I got no answer for it. I need something outside this temporary flesh and bone to strengthen me in this journey, period. In Isaiah, God describes the peace that He wants to give us. He says, it's peace like a river. It says this, if only you had paid attention to my commands, your peace would be like a river, your well-being like the waves of the sea. Peace like a river is what God must have promised to every person up in here. Not peace like a pond, where everything's nice and calm and everything's perfect, and there's, a butterfly over the pond, and not peace like a pond, peace like a river that rages and is chaotic. You know what I'm saying? It's not calm by any means. We're in a world that life is going to be chaotic. It's going to be jumping around. But amidst the chaos, He says, I will give you peace as you roll. You know what I'm saying? A river flows from one greater body that's like it, but not quite like it, right? He will be the source of all peace and give us that peace like a river. And a river also is flowing to another large body in a better place somewhere else. And so if you think of that picture, when He says, I'll give you peace like a river, it's not going to be calm and chaotic, but in the midst of going through this life and the chaos that might churn, our source is Him, we're going to a better place, and in the meantime, He'll give us peace. And one thing about a river too is as it flows through its life, it changes everything it hits. It smooths rocks. It hits them. And the people around you can be affected by when you have peace, when everybody else says, oh no, the sky is falling. What about the Muslims? What about all this stuff? When the sky is falling on the world, you stand in peace and you say, look, there's a God that's way bigger than anything CNN's going to report today. You know what I'm saying? And He's in control. Calm down. It changes the people around you when that happens. God says He will make our well-being like the waves. Waves are consistent and they're constant. They don't ever stop. You know what I'm saying? When a wave hits my foot at the ocean, I don't have to guess whether another one's going to hit. Like, it's consistently constant. He says our well-being will be just as constant and trustworthy as the waves of the sea. God gave us the Prince of Peace in Jesus, but He also gives us the Holy Spirit when we choose to put our life in His hands, to reside within us. And when we allow that Spirit to be the president, rather than just a resident up in here, one of the fruits that He will give us is peace, if He is the center of all of our life. He literally is called the Comforter.
I know your story. I've read it cover to cover. And I know the storms that will come. The waves will swell and the sky will darken. Though you'll fight against the current, you'll be swept away. You'll feel helpless and abandoned, and you'll wonder where I am in the midst of it all. I know this isn't the way you thought our relationship would work, but my plans are not for my comfort or yours. My purposes are always and only an expression of love. The scars in my hands are proof that love will sometimes lead you directly into the storm. Though you can't understand my plans, you can trust in one thing, that I am entirely good. You can't even imagine how good I am, and my plan for you is no different. When you shout asking where I am, know that I am right behind you, with my arms wrapped tightly around you, whispering, I will never let go. For you are the pinnacle of my creation and the center of my affection. There will come a day when I will quiet every storm and wipe away every tear. In that day, there will be no more pain or death. But until that day comes, I will be your anchor in this storm.
We got a whole lot to mourn about in this world. You know what I'm saying? The one that got away, the life that just didn't end up as you dreamed when you were a little girl or a little boy. You're imagining, man, when I grow up, there's so much to mourn about, or to feel bitter about, or to turn inward about. And that condition of heart, if we turn it to God, if we see that there is a greater plan behind all the pain, behind all the things that are designed to break us to the point where He can rebuild us, if we see that, the pain and the tragedy itself can be the catalyst to a whole new life. So I don't know where you're at. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're mourning, perhaps. But I do know, and I can definitively say, that God Himself holds the keys to the most abundant life possible for you as an individual, period. You look everyone in the eye and say that definitively. I know it. And that mourning is an opportunity for us to take that turn. It says, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that will far outweigh any of that. And so we fix our eyes not on what's seen here, but on what is unseen. Since what's seen around us is just temporary, but what we can't see yet is eternal. Or maybe this isn't a season of mourning for you individually. There's nothing, major you're mourning through. My question to you would be this. If we as Christians are supposed to be the hands and feet of Christ on earth, are you mourning with the people who are mourning? You know what I'm saying? I think too often as Christians, we've used the tragedies of other people as an opportunity to gossip. Man, did you hear what happened to, he's back on the booze. Or, man, did you hear what happened to... We use it as an opportunity to be gossips, or even as an opportunity to put someone else down so that I esteem a little more. Hey, did you hear about that pastor who got caught with a... Right? As the hands and feet of God, if God wants to bring comfort into people who are broken and mourning, what am I doing if I'm not doing that? I am His hands and feet, and so He should be bringing it through me. Father, I pray that today would be a day that You'd speak into brokenness, You'd speak into our life over things that we've mourned about in the past, Lord. I know, Lord, having stood over a grave of my best friend, that it was the catalyst, Lord, for changing everything in my life after, because I didn't have an answer for that, Lord. And I remember being dead myself. I remember just living life in deadness and knowing that there's no life in me. It's like I once had laid decaying, while all that death within consumed. Not knowing just quite when or how I would step out of my tomb. But lying there no more, You've heard my voice, and here I stand, to watch Your rays pierce through the haze and blaze this wretched man. Father, I praise You for everything You've done from that day until now, and I pray that no matter where anyone in this place is in their journey, that they would take that next step forward in Your direction, Lord, and not turn inward. In all that You are, God, I give You thanks.